You know, I do a lot of things. I design clothes, I write a good deal, I act, sometimes I perform in cabaret. And what I learned from Mrs. Kazan was that all the description in the world is not gonna matter as much as my making something specific to me. Like if I write something, it's usually better if I don't go on and on and on. It's usually better if I specify. And you finally come to this one story that is yours, you know? And that's what she gave me. It's a great thing to teach an artist. I would like to thank Sandy Kazan, who was my senior acting teacher in Performing Arts High School. When I arrived at Performing Arts High School, I was like 12 and a half, right? And at that age, I was really insecure, really kind of vulnerable, which is exactly what I am at this age, you know? But for some reason, like Sandy Kazan was this shining example to us because she was an actual working actress at the time. We were in awe of her because she had this tiny role in a movie called Dog Day Afternoon, which was this huge sort of Pacino opus. And, you know, we were crazy about this idea that she actually knew Pacino and that she worked with these people, etc. It was thrilling. And we went to see that movie like 10 times just to see her because she was a working actress and we all wanted to be working actors. Sandy Kazan did direct a really good production of A Midsummer Night's Dream when I was a junior in that school. And I did costumes. Like, I didn't do the costumes, but I worked on the costumes. And that's where I actually started to get into costume design. I mean, before that, I had made my own clothes and I had like sort of made puppets forever. I made these puppet shows, these crazy puppet shows. But then when I was in that class as a junior, it was my first kind of exposure as a costume designer. Having been through Performing Arts High School, you kind of got a sense of what holds an audience's attention, what performance means to you, you know? And so whenever I would stage my fashion shows, I was already, you know, 10 steps ahead of a lot of my peers. The interesting thing about fashion shows was that they were live theater. It's like a baseball game. You never know what the hell's gonna happen because it's actually happening, you know? But I feel like I had more of a sense of theatricality than a lot of my peers. Going to that school and being acquainted with that faculty, they were amazing people, not just Mrs. Kazan. I had some great teachers, and they were so smart, and we revered them to such an extent. I mean, these were adult versions of what we wanted to be, you know? And so, like, I always felt a little silly by comparison going into the fashion business, you know, because for some reason, like, the acting business was such a kind of commitment, you know? And I don't know why, like, it sort of connected to emotions, which connected to smart things. Whereas like fashion, it's like, oh no, not those shoes. And so I always felt sort of self-conscious about their regard of what I chose to do. And yet, like throughout the years, like if they were ever to reach out to me, like Mrs. Kazan, it was always in the most gracious way. They always made me feel great about what I was doing. I'd like to thank Sandy Kazan for teaching me about acting, but more teaching me how to act.